Each and every day, enjoy the Simple Six menu at Subway. An entire made-for-you meal featuring one of 6 6-inch sandwiches like the Italian BMT or Black Forest ham, with any bag of chips and a 21-ounce drink, all for only $6. Subway. Eat fresh.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. It's a chilly Friday morning here in Southern California. Not as chilly as it is back east and around a lot of the country. I had two columns went up today, one about Joe Flacco and one with the playoff pick. So you can read that on Grantland.com. Also up on Grantland, Bill Barnwell, who wrote previews for the AFC and the NFC. More importantly, he lives in Boston, and we're making this an all Boston pod today. I'm going to call my dad. I'm going to call my buddy J-Bug later. Barnwell, Boston is getting the 2024 Olympic bid, which doesn't necessarily mean they're getting the Olympics, but they got the bid. You've been living there for a while. Explain how stupid this is.
I was happy that you were going to go in that direction. I was worried that you were going to ask me to talk about how great it's going to be for Boston. It's a terrible idea. I mean, Boston, I love Boston. It is not a place to have the Olympics. I mean, you were in London for the London Olympics, right?
Yes. And
that seems like a place to have the Olympics.
It was great. It had a great subway system that was never really that crowded and went in every conceivable direction. It was really spread out like Los Angeles is, but with the subway, and it was just perfect. It was a perfect city. Boston is cramped. Boston has a subway system that can barely handle Red Sox crowds. Boston does not have the facilities. And Boston doesn't have people who want the Olympics in Boston. That seems like a crucial point.
Right. It seems like that might have come up before the Olympic bid was won, is that the vast majority of people I know in Boston, my friends, people who've lived here for decades now, all against it. Universally. I haven't found one person who's been like, yeah, we should have the Olympics here. It would be great. We'll get an extra green line. We'll have 5 green lines. Right. No, it's been just a total mess. And when you have people like I've lived here now for a long time. I've experienced the influx of college freshmen who can't struggle to understand how the subway system works in Boston. Right. I can't imagine what that would be like with millions of people who are not familiar with Boston whatsoever. It just seems like a bad idea.
I lived in the Boston area basically for the first 27 of the first 32 years of my life, if you include the 4 years in Worcester. And I still couldn't totally figure out all the subways, even by year 31. I remember one time I was like 40 minutes late to the Red Sox game because I missed the Green Line connection and freaking ended up like way down and had to. I mean, that's one thing, but the subways really haven't been updated or fixed in how many decades now? I mean, they at least since I've been living there, or I was living there in like the 70s and 80s.
Not just fixed, but actively taken away, actively cut off and reduced. I mean, they cut off half the E line and said, oh yeah, we'll fix that. We'll take care of it. And it's a bus now. I mean, I think Boston is great for a lot of different things. I'm very happy living here, but that is not going to be a good idea. I mean, if it happens, it happens. I'll probably still be living here when it happens, but I don't think it's there have to be better cities around the world than Boston for this. So at the very least, I figured just, maybe at least ask the residents of Boston if they want this.
Well, there's three different problems here, which are all part of the larger problem. One is that the city is just too small, and you need an Olympics that's spread out and can go on a bunch of different. It's so many people. Like, you just have no idea how many people it is, especially the Summer Olympics, which everybody wants to go to. Right. And I just don't think from a size standpoint, Boston has it. They definitely don't have the facilities, so they'd have to build a lot of stuff. The plan of having the colleges chip in and get arenas sounds awesome on paper, but having lived there for the entire Big Dig, Boston doesn't have the greatest track record with pulling things off in time. And then on top of it, you have the Red Sox playing there. The Olympics takes over a city for about 2 months. So you're going to have these Red Sox games that have 35,000 people coming out, going to the park and leaving every night while the whole rest of the city is being set up. That's crazy. So just structurally, it's illogical to me. Now you have
the idea of having not only Red Sox games, not only the Olympics, but having college move in at the same time, which is already a disaster in Boston. All those things at the same time is incredible.
Wait, when's the date for the 2024 Olympics? They know that?
I don't know, but I'm guessing it's going to be probably through early August, right?
Yeah, well, so the Olympics in London were like started late July, ended mid-August, which would work for Boston. But we've also seen Summer Olympics that started like late August or September. If it coincides with the college people coming, that's the all-time epic disaster in the history of America for overcrowding a city.
No, that's already a disaster every year as is. I mean, just the amount of U-Haul trucks stopping the street will just be the end of the world in Boston.
And like Canada Charles is almost a tipping point for hotels in Boston. So that's one problem. The second problem is Boston is probably the most provincial city in America.
Yes, very much so.
Does not like having outside people come in. Boston people like other Boston people. Boston people, it's like us against them. And it's a mentality that has existed since the 1770s. and the thought of just all of these people coming into Boston is not going to go well. It's just not.
I really don't know who thought this was a good idea. That doesn't occur to me at all. Any of the other choices in the U.S. would have been better, let alone elsewhere. But
well, you know who thought it was a good idea? Who? John Fish, the guy running this Olympic bid for Boston, who just happens to be in construction. Oh, that's interesting because things need to be constructed to have Boston pull off an Olympics. I wonder who's going to benefit from the construction. Is it John Fish?
It's hard to say. I feel like a Providence Olympics might be better than a Boston Olympics.
Oh my God, you might be right. They could at least put up more hotels.
Right.
We're going to call my dad later, who's the one person in Boston excited for the Olympics. He was saying he was excited for potentially a downtown stadium.
That would be nice.
Maybe in Suffolk Downs. Suffolk Downs doesn't even race horses anymore. Mm-hmm. Right? So that would be.
I believe so, yeah. But I mean, I don't know that's worth having the Olympics for. Like I've read people who said, oh yeah, at least we'll get, better infrastructure for the subway. And it's like, let's just build a subway as opposed to having the Olympics build a subway. Like who thinks about, oh yeah, let's have an Olympics so we can actually make money. It just doesn't seem like it's the best idea. It
took them 12 years to do the Big Dig. I think it was 12. I was there for the entire time. I left right before it was finished. Mm-hmm. And that was supposed to take like half the time.
Right.
They just couldn't pull it off. Part of the problem is the weather is so bad sometimes that it just derails the construction, And it's like, it'll take us 7 years. And it's like, well, actually not really, because you might have a winter where you're not able to work at all for 3 months.
Right. And that was one project. Now you're talking about like a half dozen stadiums or facilities or stuff. It just anywhere else. Providence would be better. Hartford might be better. Boston is just not the place for this.
Grantland's Charlie Pierce and I were emailing about this last night, and he threw out the possibility, just a possibility. He has no inside info. He was just wondering, would this pave the way for another baseball stadium? Could this be like very secretly the death knell for Fenway?
I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine that they would build another, the kind of stadiums they're going to build are going to be like, the Olympic, they're going to have to build like an 80,000 seat stadium, which if anything, that seems like it'd be more for the Patriots than it would be for the Red Sox. The Patriots don't need a stadium, obviously, but
they can do a temporary stadium too, right? Because that's what they did in London. They built this stadium that I always thought it was weird. They could just immediately take it down.
Yeah. There's something odd about that. I mean, maybe you build like a 70,000 seat stadium and then you retrofit it so it's a 50,000 seat stadium and you put the Red Sox in there. But I mean, at this point, there's not that sort of impetus to replace Fenway the way there was 15 years ago. There's no real like,
right.
Who wants Fenway to get torn down at this point?
Tall people, I mean, we've been with it this long. It's like a marriage. It's like you might as well just stay married until we die.
Right. I feel like it doesn't. It's not something that makes a lot of sense to me to get an Olympics and spend that much money just to get a new baseball stadium.
I don't think people realize how many venues you need for the Olympics, which is the other thing that makes me laugh. Like in London, all the soccer games were played at Wembley Stadium.
Right.
But at the same time, track and field or whatever else was going on in the big stadium. But then you had the massive Olympic Village that had, basically swimming and handball and basketball and all these different things. And I guess you could maybe say that Boston could put different parts, like you spread it around the colleges and you use Cambridge, and yeah, maybe. But what about all the people that live there? And how are you going to get from Boston to Cambridge? And how is the subway going to accommodate all this? It's just so bad.
Right. It's more likely that you would like, oh, we're going to have the soccer games at Foxborough, and like. People don't realize this because when you watch Patriots games, they show Boston when they come back from commercial, and it's closer to Providence. Like it is an hour outside the city. There are maybe 45 minutes to get to Foxborough with no traffic, and there will be traffic during the Olympics. The Mass Pike is not that great of a route to get to Foxborough. 95 is not the best way to get to Foxborough. Route 1 is not exactly the most forgiving route to get to the soccer stadium. That's 45 minutes outside the city, and there's not really a good public transit route to get there. There's the one commuter rail line. It doesn't fit. If this were a bigger city and if this were a different sort of event, I could see it, but just not the Olympics, not here. It just does not fit whatsoever.
Well, I'm sure Kraft is hoping for like some 30,000 seat soccer stadium / bunch of other things that would end up just staying there in South Boston or wherever.
Well, hey, he's got that extra $24 million to work with, so now he's good to go.
Oh, come on. Don't bait me. Don't bait me. That's not fair. The thing that really bummed me out was, and this is admittedly selfish reasons, but Los Angeles is really built for the Olympics. It's the perfect American city for the Olympics because of how sprawling it is and how it has different pockets. And they would have had the train mostly done, I think, by the time the thing started. And it's just LA wanted it here. It could be here without really affecting everybody's lives. It would have been the 40th anniversary. I don't think a U.S. city is getting it anyway. I think Rome or Paris are probably the two best options for that. But I know that the U.S. Olympic Committee recommended L.A. to the USOC, which of course ignored them, as they're prone to do. But just bizarre. And we're going to talk to my dad a little bit later because he's the one person who's defending it. Anyway, football, quickly.
Yes, very much so.
So you like who this weekend? Tell us.
Okay. I just went through it. We just did a podcast with Robert Mays, the Grantland NFL podcast. We made our picks.
My two sons.
I'm going, the two illegitimate sons. I'm going all chalk. I mean, I just think, I'll say this much. I will start with this, and I think you're probably going to be upset when I say this. I think the most likely upset of these four games is Ravens over Patriots.
I agree with you. I just handed in my picks column about 20 minutes ago, and I think the Ravens could easily win that game. And I think the line is too high.
I do too.
Here's the variable that people are forgetting about this weekend. It always amazes me, and it's like we remember so many things about sports, but for some reason, certain variables we just forget every year until they happen. Mm-hmm. Cold weather is the biggest monkey wrench there is for playoff games because, and not to step on today's column, but it murders the crowd.
It does.
Like the Patriots, there was a game they played in January 2004 against the Titans. That was a great Patriots team. They barely beat the Titans. And they only beat the Titans because Vinatieri kicked, I think, a 48-yard field goal. It was a rock-hard football. It was 0 degrees. We're going to have my buddy Bug on in a little bit to talk about that game and just what it's like to go to cold weather games. But there's no crowd. The crowd's gone. The crowd is bundled up wearing mittens and scarves, and they're not making noise. So it's basically a neutral field game at that point. Mm-hmm. And you just don't see – they're just always battles. They're low scoring. They come down to a couple different plays. And the thing that scares me about the Ravens – and I noticed this last week, and this is when I got belatedly scared about a team that I was not scared about. They just have so many guys who show up for big games, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a skill, as weird as that sounds. Like, it's a skill to stay durable, and it's a skill to show up for big games. And you just go down the line. It's like, the Smiths, those guys are going to show up. The defensive line, all those guys are going to be good. Flacco's going to show up. Justin Tucker is the best big game kicker in the league, probably. Jacoby Jones is probably the best big game returner in the league. Like, you go down the line, it's like, we might lose this game.
Yeah, it's really kind of scary. And I think that when I was looking at it, the thing I thought was, okay, of the teams who are all underdogs, what's the biggest weapon they have? And how likely is that to influence the game? Like, the Cowboys have a great running game, and that could help them against the Packers. The Panthers have a great defense in general, I would say, right now. But They can only do so much against Seattle. They're so bad elsewhere on offense. They're going to have so much struggle moving the football that I can't really see them having a dominant performance there. The Ravens pass rush is so good and can impact that game so significantly that you could see that actually turning that game around. They could win the game just because they dominate up front. When they actually, I looked it up, when they get pressure and they don't blitz, when they get pressure with 4 guys or less, the opposing team's passer rating is 0.2. That's worse than Ryan Lindley. Ryan Lindley was a 44 last week. So significantly worse than Ryan Lindley last week. I mean, the one game where the Patriots looked out of sorts this year, the worst game of the year, was that Chiefs game. And you can imagine the Ravens emulating that with Elvis Dumervil, with Terrell Suggs, with Pernell McPhee, and Haloti Ngata. You could see them having that kind of game if everything goes right against the Patriots on Saturday.
Yeah, and the Patriots' offensive line didn't look good. Didn't look good. Then in Week 16 against the Jets, didn't look good again. And the recipe for beating the Patriots isn't exactly a secret. You know, it's you do what the Giants did in those 2 Super Bowls, and you do what the Ravens did in 2012. You pressure them up the middle. You make Brady move from side to side. You pressure them with as few guys as you possibly can while still getting pressure. And then you just hit the shit out of the receivers. Yeah. Let them catch it and hit them. And the Ravens do all of those things. And, Brady in cold weather. I added this to the playoff manifesto a few years ago because it's something that is a recurring theme in the playoffs. You get older quarterbacks in cold weather. Not a good history. Really, it's not good. And I think with Manning against Indy, now I don't think Indy is close to Denver from a talent standpoint. But if you're going to make a case for Indy, the case is basically 2 things: luck having a great game, and Manning in cold weather, and that's it. That's your case.
It's going to be 41 there, so it's going to have to drop a little bit, I think, for the point where it'd be a significant influence. But it's not going to help.
It's going to be as high as 41.
I'm looking at the weather report now, and it says 41, wind chill down to 36. So that's not. That's cold, but it's not like it's not like it's New England where it's going to be 20 and the wind chill is going to be 8. With that game, I mean, I think it's the big question is Peyton Manning hurt? I don't think he is. I think it was more them kind of reducing his throws before the final few weeks of the year. I think they wanted to keep him as healthy as possible for the playoffs. I mean, I don't know that you agree with that. They have great special teams, the Colts. I could see them winning a game that way. I could see them, Denver kind of running the ball too much and not being able to run the ball effectively. But I don't know. I just think the Ravens have that sort of dominant striking force when it comes to that pass rush that can totally impact and change the way the Patriots play that game. And the Ravens, their biggest weakness on defense is throws downfield. They're 31st in QBR and throws 15 yards downfield, and that's not what the Patriots do well. They're not a chuck it deep team anymore.
You're telling me.
If only they'd had 4 years to find a downfield receiver who was better than Brian Timms.
We've repeatedly drafted the person. He just hasn't come through. The Manning injury thing, the two kind of subtle monkey wrenches for this weekend. Rodgers' calf muscle.
Yes.
We don't know how hurt he is. I just know that if it's going to be like 5 degrees or whatever it's going to be in Lambeau, and he's got a partially torn calf muscle, that's not good. Just point blank, that's not good. There's no scenario where that's good. You cannot come up with one. And then, you know me, I love the eye test to almost to a fault. Manning didn't look right the last 6 weeks. He just didn't. And the fact that he was missing practice, that play when what was it? The interception at the goal line. The guy hit him and he kind of flinched. He went off the field. Like, he's clearly not 100%, and that's a red flag for me.
I don't doubt that he's not 100%, but the question for me is he 90% or is he 50%?
Right.
And I think it's closer to 90 than 50. To me, and if it was 50, if it turns out that he's just not remotely the same guy, I wouldn't be stunned. I mean, you don't change your offense like that overnight if you're not at least concerned about that. But I think it was more about preventing the injury from getting worse than it was, the fact that he's just hurt and can't come back and can't be the same guy.
There's two possible reasons why they might have changed their offense, because you were on that pretty early, and I agreed with you. And it was strange that overnight they were just trying to be the '98 Broncos. one is Manning could have been injured, which I think is, no question that's in play. Two, they lost that Patriots game. And at that point, they're losing every tiebreaker to the Patriots and have to actually finish one win ahead of them to get the 1 seed.
Right.
And they might have just looked at the big picture and said, this is not realistic. Let's go into pseudo play possum mode. Let's try to get Manning through the regular season. Let's bring our guys back when they're 100%, not 90%. Let's just get through the season and let's save our A game for round 2.
Doesn't that make sense?
I think that's possible.
Given that they the week before they changed their offense around, the week before they very clearly went to running the ball as a primary focus of their offense, they played the Rams. They lost to the Rams 22-7. They threw 54 passes against 9 rush attempts. So I guarantee they went in that game and they said, listen, we're not running the ball enough. We're leaving Manning out to dry, and we're not doing that well when we're doing it. We're not having the same kind of offensive success we had a year ago. And last year, before that Super Bowl, I went back and looked. Peyton Manning he'd thrown the third most passes in the history of football in a single season before the Super Bowl. Wow. I think Drew Brees and somebody else there were 2 guys or Drew Bledsoe actually, that one year in 94 where Drew Bledsoe threw like 1,000 passes in the regular season. Those were the 2 guys who had thrown more passes in a single season heading into the Super Bowl than Peyton Manning had. And I really think if you look at that from the Broncos, you're right. You look at it from the perspective and you say, well, we need to just be smart. We have a pretty easy schedule over the final 6 weeks of the year, and they went 5-1. Why not, have us go be the 2 seed? If we're not going to get the 1 seed, let's try and play the big picture. Let's try and save Peyton Manning's throws, given that he might not have 1,000 throws in his arm left. Let's save those for the playoffs if we can. And I think that they were able to do that. And right or wrong, they were still able to be effective on offense. They scored more points on offense after making that switch than they did beforehand.
Yeah.
On a per game basis.
And C.J. Anderson, it's funny how some teams can just keep losing running backs and plugging new guys in, and it just doesn't matter. And in some cases, the guys are even better. And then you have a situation like Arizona or Indianapolis where they plug guys in and they're just an abomination.
Yeah.
Boom Herron's better than whatever Arizona was trotting out, but Boom Herron also puts the ball on the ground every game. Yeah. And he's going to fumble in Denver. Like, he fumbles every game. It just is what happens. The other thing that I thought was weird in round 1 that it was, nobody really made a big deal out of because Indy won pretty convincingly. T.Y. Hilton was terrible in that game.
Yeah. I thought Andrew Luck was phenomenal. I thought he played incredible football, but T.Y. Hilton had 3 drops, and really it could have been, I guess one of them was kind of knocked away, but he still should have held on to the football. He could have had an extra 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. And he could have had one of the greatest games in playoff history. And
certainly wide open the whole game.
Right. I mean, it's good that he was getting open. It was good that he was 100%. He was healthy, and that, Luck was finding him. But, man, they left a lot of plays on the field last week. And you could spin that both ways. You could say, well, it means that they're going to make bigger plays when they're a little better at converting those catches next week. But the Denver defense and the Denver pass rush in particular are a lot better than Cincinnati's pass rush. And I think that's going to dramatically impact how much time Andrew Luck has to find Hilton downfield for those kind of plays.
You've been writing about this all year. Luck, I think a lot of quarterbacks are like this, but Luck is the best quarterback who's like this, where if you can really pressure him, he's a different guy.
Yeah.
He'll put the ball up for grabs a little bit. If you do not pressure him, you're done. And my biggest fear for taking the Bengals last week, other than not knowing if AJ Green was going to play, was that I didn't, their pass rush, there was no secret. It sucked. They didn't. Didn't you have a stat? J.J. Watt had more sacks than Cincinnati?
Yeah, J.J. Watt had, I think, 21 and a half, and Justin Houston had 22, and the Bengals had 20, I think. So, I mean, they did one player more than their entire team, and it wasn't
so that wasn't good.
No.
And I should have changed my pick when AJ Green went out, but at that point, it was 20 minutes before the column was going to go up. And what do you do at that point? Can you really change your pick that late? Like, I felt karmically I was just screwed either way.
Yeah.
But this Denver defense is so much better than Cincinnati's defense. And even if you look at that Colts game, it was 13-10 in the third quarter, and Cincinnati was once they figured out that it was Jeremy Hill or bust for Cincinnati's offense, that was it.
Yeah, basically.
Switching to Dallas quickly. There's been some interesting articles this week about whether Dallas can run the ball in Green Bay or not. Schatz had a good article on ESPN.com about how conceivably you'd set up the play action with Murray, but the Cowboys actually don't do a lot of play action.
Right.
And that seems to be what would work against the Packers, only that's not like really what they do. Why is it so hard to just learn how to do play action?
You would think it'd just be a pretty core component of your offense when you have, you're running your star running back into the ground for 390 carries. It just would seem like a logical way to approach things. I don't know whether they don't run a lot of play action. I wonder if it's whether they just want to keep Romo from moving as much as possible. And I mean, he's still going to move anyway, but it seems like it should be a bigger part of what they do. I think for the Cowboys, even more so than play action, it's going to be just running the ball, not just to be successful and because it's what they're good at. And the Packers aren't a great run defense by any means, but I think just because you want to keep the Green Bay offense off the field. I mean, the Cowboys have a pretty mediocre defense to begin with, and they could be without Rolando McClain, who's one of their best players in defense in any position. Their middle linebacker. They could be without Jeremy Mincey. They could be without Hitchens, who is, of course, part of that famous play from last week. And they could be down 2 linebackers, one of their defensive ends, and they're missing a defensive tackle as well. I mean, they could be down 4 players from their defense, and that, it just doesn't. They don't have the kind of defensive personnel to mitigate that. They're going to be mediocre in defense with those guys. They could be really bad without those guys, and I think you just have to hope that they're not on the field for more than 25 minutes in this game. You just hope that you're so good running the football and you're so good finding Dez against the Packers secondary when you need him, and Whitten against Micah Hyde or wherever when you need him, to just stay on the field for 38, 40 minutes and win the game that way. I don't see them being able to hold up if Aaron Rodgers has, time to throw and really even more so than that, Eddie Lacy has time and holes to run the football with.
It's funny. I looked at that Dallas, like if they were missing those guys differently. It's like their defense isn't that good anyway. So, it's like if the Celtics, if Evan Turner is hurt and Phil Pressey has to play, ultimately that doesn't really mean anything. So that was my mindset. I feel like the Dallas offense, as you said, if they win, it'll be because of their offense and because they just dominated the game. And I don't mind. I picked the Cowboys. I took the points. Yeah. I don't mind, especially in cold weather, which tends to be more low scoring, who's going to make the first mistake type games. I don't mind having a really good offense and a QB that wins on the road. I think the biggest mistake people make in the playoffs sometimes is forgetting that it's really hard to win a playoff game on the road as a QB, and it does. There are 2 levels of QB, and the first level is I can go into any stadium and win a playoff game. And I think Romo, who takes a lot of I think he's on the short list of guys who can do that.
I want to see the Cowboys win to some extent, just so we can have like the revisiting Tony Romo columns where people are just like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have just trashed that guy for a decade. Maybe he's actually pretty good. Because I mean, if you look at the numbers, Tony Romo should be an MVP candidate this year. I mean, given how he's played on a not only on a numbers basis, but also just how he's performed, how he's worked through that, 2 broken bones in his back. He's been phenomenal this season, but he's never going to get any credit for it because he's Tony Romo. We just discount that because he's Romo. We don't think of him that way. And if he wins this game, if he beats Green Bay in a game where it's going to be 6 degrees on the road, you're going to have to start giving him credit. You're going to have to at least admit that, he is that guy. And I think he has the talent to be that guy. He doesn't have the results, obviously, but I think, I think that the results are going to come if you give him a big enough sample.
You love either or scenarios.
I do.
And the Rodgers either or scenario coming out of this game is pretty interesting because except for the Super Bowl season, somebody had this, I put this email in my picks part of the mailbag this week. Except for his Super Bowl season, Aaron Rodgers has only won one other playoff game, and that was the game when he beat Joe Webb. So if he loses this game, I think he would then be 1-3 at Lambeau career in the playoffs. And people then now all this whole, Aaron Rodgers, is he even that good? Now that all starts up. Then if he wins the game and goes in this, now it's like Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback of all time. Football is out of all the sports, I think, has the most extremes just because there's not a lot of games.
Of course, you have to base it on a small sample, and you have to base it on, the fact that you drop a snap earlier in your career. I mean, when I went back and I did a big article on It Factor before the season. Yep. I know you're an It Factor guy. I'm not. I love It Factor, but I wrote about it, and it was funny because that first year and a half Tony Romo was in the league, people could not stop writing It Factor articles about him.
Yeah.
up to that Seahawks game where he dropped that snap, at which point they stopped. And no one's written an Factor article about Tony Romo in 6 years. And it's just interesting because you base it on that. You base it on what you see now. And that's only 16, 20, 20 regular season games. That could be a half dozen playoff games. It's like basing your opinion of LeBron James based on one NBA series, which is crazy. But that's what we have to do in football, for better or worse.
Well, the funny thing is he wasn't good last weekend.
Romo? No, not really.
I mean, his two big plays were all run after the catch plays. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until that last drive that he really started playing well. But like in the previous drive, he took two horrific sacks that should have knocked him out of field goal range. But I think the guy ended up making like a 53-yarder. But
Sue had both those sacks.
If that guy had missed that field goal, and then Detroit just ran out the clock, we would have been like, Romo, what an idiot. Took those two sacks. He sucks.
But I'll tell you, the flip side of that is if Romo has Joe Flacco's playoff record, we say, okay, you know what? When Tony Romo needed to come through, he came through. He had 10 points in the fourth quarter, had that game-winning drive. 4th and 6, no problem. Just cool under pressure, Tony Romo. But it's tough. I mean, I feel like you can spin that both ways a lot of the time. And with Romo, the record's been so bad that it's so easy to kind of disparage him and kind of detract from him. With Flacco, like you wrote today, I mean, Flacco's been so good in the playoffs that it's easy to kind of look on the bright side and say, okay, I'm kind of scared of this guy, which, during the regular season, I'm not scared of Joe Flacco. But if it was Ravens Giants, I'd be scared of Joe Flacco right now too. And
you root for the NFC version of that guy, Eli, who's just up and down for his entire career, unless it's the playoffs, and then suddenly he's zinging 40-yarders.
Oh man, I want to see Eli. Stuff. Can you imagine Eli Manning and Odell Beckham in the playoffs together? It's going to be so great in 2015.
You're getting Sue, right?
That's going to be great. They're going to spend $25 million a year.
That's happening, right? That's in the works. That's happening.
I'm very excited.
Sue. He'll be great. He'll be a great Giant. But the Giants fans will blindly defend him. It would be awesome. So you think Ravens have the best chance. I think Ravens and Cowboys both have a great chance. And I don't see Carolina putting up more than 6 points in that Seattle game, especially what are they going to do when they fall 10 points back?
Right. It's like they're doomed if they ever get down by a touchdown.
Oh, really? All we have to do is defend Greg Olsen and make sure Kelvin Benjamin doesn't get too open. Good luck with that. And then the Denver-Indy game, I wouldn't rule out the luck. The awesome luck. I said in the column today, it's the Luck's version of the LeBron 48-point game against the Cavs. Can't be ruled out. I mean, against the Pistons. Can't be ruled out because he's certainly going to be the defining quarterback of this generation, I think. And at some point, he's going to have a moment in the playoffs. Elway.
He had that Chiefs game. Was pretty good.
Which one?
He had the Chiefs game last year. That wasn't too bad. In terms of I don't think that's
pretty good, but he threw some terrible picks in that game too. I mean,
he was awful for the first half, but then he was incredible during the second half. I mean, it's not out of the question. You think about Joe Flacco when he kind of took that leap where he said, "Oh, I'm kind of worried about Joe Flacco in the playoffs." It was against the Broncos in this exact situation. They were underdogs, and even before the Hail Mary, I thought he had a pretty good game in that game. He was not the reason the Ravens were going to lose that game until the Hail Mary, but this could kind of be that same stepping stone for Luck. If you beat Peyton Manning, in Denver at home, with to be fair, a pretty mediocre football team besides you, you're not coming back from that. You're not going to doubt Andrew Luck after that for a while. And I think that, it's not out of the question by any means. I have a little more faith in the Baltimore pass rush because there's so many of them as opposed to, and they're playing a weakness for the Patriots in that offensive line as opposed to what the Colts have, where it's Andrew Luck versus a very good Broncos defense.
Bill Barnwell, you can check him out on Grantland. He's been writing extensively during the playoffs, and you can also listen to his Grantland NFL podcast with Robert Mace on the Grantland Network. Thanks as always. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, as promised, my buddy J-Bug, he is in Boston. He has been going to Pats games since we had a really crappy stadium, and Bill Parcells was the coach. He has been to a lot of cold weather football games in his life, including the Tennessee game, which was epically cold, and which I actually included an excerpt of the email he sent me 11 years ago after the Tennessee game. That's in today's column that hasn't gone up yet. The J-Bug, how are you?
Yeah, cold. It was cold. I'm good.
Explain to America what the crowd is like during a game that is really freaking cold, because I feel like this is the number one thing that people don't factor into both gambling and what they expect from a playoff game.
I don't know. It's different. That game was different because it was so cold. It was the coldest it's ever been, and I don't think it's ever been any colder. So that was almost like subdued but excited, and you were too cold to do anything. Though I think tomorrow is going to be different. Tomorrow's not going to be that cold. We'll be in the 20s. We'll be in the teens. We'll be in the teens.
It's going to be in the teens?
Yeah.
I thought my dad said it was going to be colder than that.
No, it's going to be in the teens. Well, the Tennessee game was minus 12 with the wind chill. Like 4 degrees at kickoff. It was freezing. It was you couldn't drink bottled beer. You couldn't drink beer. It was unbelievable. The beers were freezing when you opened them.
Right.
Tomorrow's going to be kind of, I talked to Grover and Nico. I'm like, hey, we bring in the tent? I'm like, why? It's going to be sunny. So I think that tomorrow won't be as bad. It's going to be cold, especially when it starts to get dark, because I guess that's when it's going into the teens. It's going to be 20 in the parking lot when we tailgate, and then at right around 4 o'clock, that's when it's supposed to dip down into 19 to 18 degrees.
Oh, well, that's cold, though. It's going to be dark and cold.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Hey, listen. Hey, it's going to be dark and cold, but, again, we're playing Baltimore. Who cares? They're just as psyched as we are. Like, hey, cold, great. We're fine with it.
Yeah, but Baltimore doesn't have a 37-year-old QB.
Well, and they don't have a 37-year-old QB. They've got, like, a mummy, I don't know. He's got ice in his veins. He's good. I don't like that. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, you got mad at me when I discounted the Ravens a week ago, and I've apologized to all my Patriot fan friends for just assuming that what I watched the whole season actually meant something. I watched a Ravens team that hadn't been good since week 2 and just assumed they were done and forgot they were the Ravens, and then they killed Pittsburgh and looked like the Ravens again. So I learned my lesson.
That really was a bummer. That was a big bummer. Them beating Pittsburgh. That hurt. That was not good. You had a pit in your stomach. Well, I'm optimistic. It's a different team. It's definitely a different team, but I'd say we're all a little bit queasy. I know Grove is a little queasy. Nico, not so much. Nico's calling us. I don't know if I can say it. He's calling us pussies. You guys are pussies. Come on. But I'm a little bit nervous. Not nervous like I'm going to lose my job and not be able to pay my mortgage nervous. More like, hey, we're playing a good team nervous. Yeah. I don't like playing Baltimore.
I wish we blocked better.
So it's the divisional round, right? So I think Brady's like 8-2 in these games. And the two losses are against just badass freaking crazy defenses that get off to the quarterback, and the Jets. We obviously will never forget that. And then Baltimore, and that was the Baltimore team that had they had Lewis and Reed, but they had Suggs and they had Nagata, and I think he was a Pro Bowl that year too. I mean, those are the types of teams that do the ball control thing and then get after the quarterback and kind of disrupt things in the backfield, and it becomes one of those this is going to be a 21-20 game or 17-13 game, which in the past didn't play well for us. But I think this year it's a little bit different. I'm a little bit if the Pats score 21 points, which I think they're going to score more, but if they do, we'll be in the game. It's not going to be like, oh crap, we're not going to win if we can only score 21 points. So.
Well, we know the recipe to beating our beloved Patriots.
Oh yeah,
we've seen it multiple times. Good.
Hey, you know who else knows that?
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's weird? We're not going to really know how scared we should be about the game until that play somewhere in the first quarter or the early second quarter when Brady takes a shot deep, but it's with somebody that you don't necessarily want him to take a shot deep with. It's like Brian Timms or Reggie Slater.
Yeah.
But somehow that guy's wide open, but then either Brady misses him or he trips over a Ravens foot or something, and we missed
the air
this.
knocks down and it's 5 yards shorter than it should have been.
Yeah, and we missed our kind of shot to go deep. That was just sitting there for a quarter and a half, and then everyone kind of looks at each other and goes, "Oh boy."
See, I'm thinking more just the very first set of downs. If it's going to be run 2 yards, run 1 yard, and a dink and dunk, and it picks up 3 yards, and we have to punt, and there's 40 seconds that we're taking off the clock, or a minute and a half, and then all of a sudden we're punting, and we're on our 28-yard line. That's going to suck. That's going to really suck.
The other thing that scares me, Gronk is our CO2 canister from Fast and the Furious. He's our Nas switch. Just click the switch and you unleash Gronk, and that's the way our car really goes fast. And the Ravens know this, and the Ravens have shown a penchant over the last few years of saying, you know what? It's okay if you get a flag. It's okay if you have an unnecessary roughness. It's okay if you cheap shot somebody. It's only a 15-yard penalty. Just do it anyway. I think they're going to try to punish Gronk.
Oh, yeah, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Let's hope he doesn't get injured, but
obviously.
How else would you play it?
I can't remember, not since Pedro in 99 and 2000, when every Pedro pitch you were nervous was going to be the pitch where his arm came off his body. Every time they throw to Gronk, I'm just nervous. I just want him to get tackled and get up. That's all I think about. Just don't hit him in the knees. Don't try to do something funky. Don't try to carry the 4 guys. Just go down and get up.
I think that's pretty much what the entire stadium is like every time he catches the ball, especially when he's coming over the middle.
Right.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly how you feel with Gronk. And man, I'll tell you right now, it's one of those things that he's such a difference maker. You think if Gronk, LaFell's got a little bit of an injury. I don't know how serious that is, but if Gronk's going to make it through the whole game, knock on wood, that means Edelman or LaFell or Vereen out of the backfield is going to have a big game.
Right.
So if you got to take Gronk out, Brady will know how to exploit that. That's it. I mean, they're definitely, the game plan should be stopping Gronk and then having one of those other guys make a play, and you just got to hope that one of the other guys, makes plays all day. So
what Brady are you expecting? Are you expecting frustrated, not really liking how the game is going Tom Brady? Are you expecting like weirdly quiet Tom Brady? Or are you expecting fist pump?
I'm thinking
fired up, yelling at teammates Tom Brady?
If he's that Tom Brady, that means we're winning.
Isn't it weird? Don't you know we're winning when we see that Tom Brady?
Yeah.
It's just you lock it down.
Yeah. It is true. I've
always be that Tom Brady?
When you're at the game, you don't see it as much, right? When I watch the games at home, you see it a lot more. When you're in the stadium, you don't get to see that as much. The only time you see it is if there's a big play and then they zoom to him and he's running down the field and headbutting people or doing what Tom Brady does.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, again, if you might even be playing into their hands, Baltimore's hands, if you're going to get emotional too, right? You get too emotional. Look at Flacco. Again, going back to Flacco, the dude's just flatlined, right? Doesn't get too emotional.
Flacco scares you.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, you know who else does? You know who I love? Like, again, being a New Englander, I'm the homer of all homers, but I like both those guys. I like Roethlisberger and Flacco. I just think they're both really good quarterbacks, and they're both underrated. Roethlisberger is underrated, even though how 2 Super Bowls, and he's great, but I just feel like people don't give him enough respect. I think he's a good quarterback. He just has no offensive line. He gets freaking killed all the time. And Flacco's scary, dude. Like scary.
Flacco's one of those silent guys that sits down at the table with you, and you just instinctively grab the beer bottle. Even though he's not doing anything, he's just looking at you, but you're like, you know what? I'm afraid of this guy, and I'm going to grab my beer bottle just in case.
I think he's more like the guy, I sent you an email, I think he's more like the guy at work that wears the pocket protector, and then you have the Christmas holiday party, and he just wipes the floor up with everyone in billiards, and then we do bowling, and he just, kills everyone in bowling. And they're like, hey, let's do some darts, and he's freaking wiping everyone up in darts. He's just one of those dudes that, you look at him in his daily work life, and you're like, not much there. And then you get him on the field, and you're like, what the hell just happened? Like, how did he, standing stiff as a board, it almost looks like he's stiff as a board, and he just like, boop, and boom, it's a perfect spiral right on the money. The guy scares me a little bit. He's a weird dude. And again, if I'm down in Baltimore and I followed him all the time, I might know his personality, but I just know him from like seeing him on the TV and not doing, I don't hear the radio interviews or what his personality's like, but he just looks like a drone, like dead kind of doll-eyed dude to me when I see him. Like, that guy's an assassin. For me, again, up here, I don't, it's the same with Rodgers, too. When the Pats played Green Bay, I was like, holy crap, we don't see enough of this guy. He's unfreaking believable.
He's great.
He's unbelievable. And I think Flacco's the same way. That guy scares me, man.
That worries me a little that Brady did not outplay Rodgers in that game. And I'm nervous about this game. I'm glad we're talking this out. I want to be properly nervous heading into this game.
I'm really nervous. But I think, again, I'm a little bit nervous with the offense, but I'm equally as confident in the defense that we have this year. Okay. I think our defense is solid. You know what? Mayo might be what Bledsoe was to Brady with Collins/Hightower. Both those guys just had an unbelievable year. So I think our defense, the secondary and our linebackers are stout. Like I feel good about it. I feel good about it being a low-scoring game and us being able to win a low-scoring game where I never would have thought that in the past. You're playing
How scared are you of the 35-yard Brandon Browner pass interference penalty?
Well, he's been doing them all year, right? So.
Yeah, I'm just penciling that in. I know the Ravens are going to get a touchdown off of Brandon Browner pass interference, and they might even get a field goal off his unnecessary roughness hit where he hit Steve Smith out of bounds. He might be worth 10 points to the Ravens in this game.
Yeah,
I'm resigned to it.
In the early going, I thought, when he in his first couple of games, I thought, oh my God, this guy is Brian Cox for us.
Right, I remember you said that.
Came in but the difference is Brian Cox, he wasn't penalized all that much. Maybe early on his career, when he played for the Pats, he didn't take a lot of penalties.
Yeah,
he played to the whistle and he hit hard, but Browner he takes a lot of penalties. But maybe to your point, you said you made a good point for Baltimore. Like, hey, why don't we rough up Gronk and hit him a little bit? Maybe Browner does the same thing. Maybe he's our guy on defense that has the big hit and gets the 15-yarder. But not that bummed about it. We will be when it happens. But at the end of the game, if it's we win, it's like, wow, Browner plays physical. He gets the penalties every now and again. But man, he just clobbered people out there.
What's on the barbecue agenda for Saturday? Oh
man, we've got our tailgate is so awesome. We've got if anyone's in the Rodman lot, come visit us. We're in Rodman every week. We've got an awesome tailgate. My brother tailgates with us, and he always brings his clients. So he does lobster and like that.
Lobster,
like shrimp tail, like all, he'll do. He does the lamb pops. He does he has his own company, so he's entertaining customers. But he likes taking with the Down and Dirty boys, with me, Grover, Nico, and Jen, and Erickson, and Chris, all those guys. He likes them being there. So he comes to our tailgate. So now we have like 4 or 5 cars across. We've got the high-end area over there to the right where he has like nice tequila and everything you can imagine. And then we've got our crew, swilling the brews. And Nico always does an unbelievable job on the grill. And he's going to be doing, I believe, kielbasa. We always bring the fryer later. So this week he sent out the menu, and I'm drawing a blank right now, but it's like going to be like.
Wait, can you explain to America how the Patriots cut down the amount of time you can tailgate before games?
Yeah, you know what? We've been parking at Rodman, but they're pretty strict with the state police on the 4 hours for the you can't go in 4 hours before on the tailgate.
Yeah.
But we leave a little bit early. We park at the Rodman lot, so we get in a little bit earlier. So we should be in around 11:15. I would imagine.
Bug. It could be time for Celtics season tickets.
Hey, let's not talk about that right now.
No, it could be time. They're going to keep cutting the tailgate time. At some point, you're just going to be driving to eat a hot dog and go to the game. Like,
we've ruined
the experience.
It is the only reason why I will speak for myself, and I just have to assume that Nico and Grover feel the same way. It is the only reason why we still go to the Pats game is the tailgate. We're both all of us are in our 40s. We've got kids. and it's a long day. It's, you're out there early in the morning, and you get home late at night. And if we didn't do the Pats games, we'd see each other probably once a year. And this is a way for us to get together. And there have been games this year where we were like, screw it, we'll watch the game on TV. And we stayed out in the lot, and we didn't even use our ticket. Swear to God.
Wow.
Swear to God.
That sounds like me in college at the Holy Cross tailgates. We wouldn't even go into the stadium.
We might get booed for that, but that did happen. It was a late. I'll give you a hint. It was a very late season game that wasn't very important, but we overindulged maybe a little bit, and we were like, screw it, let's just stay here. So for us, it's all about the tailgate.
But here's the bottom line: tailgating is awesome. Like, but you would never say to your friends, like on a random Sunday in March, let's go to a parking lot and grill some stuff and just hang out, because it'd be weird. You need some sort of excuse.
That's it.
But the reality is, tailgating is awesome. I have a great time at every tailgate I go to. I love tailgates.
It's you just hit the nail on the head. That's what we're saying. Like, we've said, hey, if we give up our tickets, we should just go to someone's house, tailgate, and then go in and watch the game. We're like, yeah, in the first game it'll be like we'll be there at 8:30 and we'll be doing it, and then the second game we'll be there at like 10:30, and then it'll just turn into, hey, see you at 5 of 1 if we even go to each other's house and watch. So that is the fear. That is the big fear with us, is that we'll give that up, because it is about the tailgate, and that's it. I mean, the tailgating is, for us, that's it. We've been doing it since 93. Before that, even, because we were just buying tickets and going to Pat. But we've had our season tickets since then, and before that, we'd go to the games. We've been doing it for a long time, and we're like a well-oiled machine, man.
Yeah,
it's all about the tailgate. It is. It's all about the tailgate. So we expect to have a good tailgate.
That's why I'm rooting for LA football, because I love the thought of just going to an NFL game at like 8:00 or whatever and just tailgating before the game.
See, my theory was a little bit killed on that with the LA football, because I was a big believer that in 2015 or 16 Brady would be playing for the LA franchise, but they sold their house out in LA. They were like, why is he building that huge? I'm like, I'm telling you, they get the football team out there, and Brady's going to play there. But now
he's in Brookline.
But now he's in Brookline, and I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. I know that you've had thoughts that maybe not, but
I'm
building a house there.
I'm a little concerned. I wish he had a contract that made it a lot harder for the team to cut ties with him. The way they arranged it now, it's relatively easy for them to get rid of him after March.
I know. I just still can't see that ever happen.
You have to admit, though, deep down, it would be Belichick's. It would be the all-time Belichick move.
To want to win one without him?
Just from everything we've seen from Belichick since 2000, the coup de grace for him would be shanking Brady 14 years after he shanked Bledsoe for Brady. It would be the ultimate full circle move. I hope it doesn't happen.
I don't know if he was ever a Bledsoe guy, though. That's the thing.
Oh, remember? Do you remember the 5-year?
So many players. What's that?
Remember the 5-year span as we slowly realized that Bledsoe wasn't a franchise QB? It literally was 5 years. It was like being in a relationship with somebody that you thought you were in love with, and all your friends knew that you weren't in love with her, but it took you 5 full years to realize it. That was us and Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah, I thought that's what it was going to be like for Baltimore Ravens fans with Flacco, too, but apparently that wasn't the case. He reminded me a lot of Bledsoe. Tall, lanky, stiff as a board.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bledsoe, and I loved him. I still do. I think he's a great, I don't know him personally, but he seems like a great dude. He's got a little wine thing going out there. He's kind of chill. He's going to be making $1 billion selling it into Massachusetts soon.
He was a good Patriot. Yeah. He was a good transition Patriot between one era and the era that mattered.
Well, think about how excited we were in New England. This is why I think teams like Detroit before this year, right? They made the playoffs, but I always feel like a team like Detroit, I'm so jealous of them because their fan base can dream, right? They have that. I don't think there was a more exciting season for the Pats is that last season where we beat Miami in the final game, knocked them out of the playoffs. We finished 5-11. I don't think I was ever excited to be a Patriots fan as that season. It was awesome because you were on the rise. You hadn't won a bunch of You haven't won 10 games every year for the past 14 years. We're spoiled. We're fat, sloppy, and spoiled.
Yeah.
Back then, it was like, and again, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm older now. Maybe I was younger, so I was full of more energy and all that stuff too. But man, I'd love to be a Detroit Lions fan right now because all you're thinking about is next year. Like next year, we're going deeper. We're going deeper next year.
Yeah, that was a great run. Bledsoe won the last 4.
Yeah.
Then we had the next year. We made the playoffs. We lost the Browns playoff game, but it kind of set up. And eventually we had the Super Bowl season. And I watched that game at your brother's house with you.
Oh,
and they kicked off to Desmond Howard, and it was in the air. And all of us were looking at each other like, wait a second.
Yeah.
That looks like that's going toward Desmond Howard. This seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, that was awful. That was awful.
That was awful.
And then
I still feel like Parcells might have thrown that game.
Ooh, would you throw a game or win a? What would you rather do?
No, I know he didn't, but I for the life of me, I'll go to my grave wondering why we kicked the ball right to Desmond Howard.
That would
we
be
had all the momentum. Remember they showed Reggie White? The Packer fans are in denial about this. They showed Reggie White in the sidelines. We had that drive right before the kickoff, and Reggie White was heaving for air on the sidelines. That guy was cooked.
Yeah.
We had the momentum.
That would have maybe changed Bledsoe's career too. No.
Hey, can you quickly explain to America why an Olympics in Boston maybe isn't the greatest idea?
Oh yeah, well, it's I think it would take you like 4 hours to get anywhere easily. Like we're no good. You know, the T is horrible. Horrible for something like this. I understand they're going to build, ways around it, but it's just, and also just politically speaking, we're a little bit sketchy here. Like, don't you think money's going to be going somewhere else that should be going somewhere where it shouldn't be going? I don't know. I just think Boston's just not the right city. Structurally, we're not ready for it. Now, would that mean that maybe we get a stadium in Somerville or Southie for the Revolution to come down and have a soccer team in the city? That would be kind of cool. That would be neat. But I just don't think I don't think Boston is the best city for us to have an Olympics.
What about the mentality of Boston people as a million outside people descend on the city for?
We'll be out of here. There are people that can't get out of here, but no, we're not. We're very frigid. We're like the weather here. Dari, she's from Mexico.
Yeah.
Man, keep your distance, kind of. Like down there, like you hug with someone when you see them. You talk to strangers, or down south or California, I imagine too. Like if someone's talking to you in Boston, that's a stranger. Like this guy's going to rob me, or what does this guy want? Why is he talking to me? Why is this person smiling at me and waving and saying hello? I don't know. I think it's just not very nice. But I mean, if you're from here and you're very tight and close and you'll help anyone out and you give someone the shirt off your back. But yeah, I think for outsiders, it's a very challenging place to come to.
It's an us against them mentality.
A little bit.
That's Boston in a nutshell.
Boston
people like other Boston people.
Yeah, we're a little bit. I think like New Yorkers are like the nicest people. I go to New York, I'm like, man, everyone's so freaking nice here.
Well, half the New York people aren't from New York.
Yeah, they have a bad rap, man. They go to New York, they're nice. They come to Boston, it's like, it's not a beautiful city. In the summertime, it's going to be absolutely beautiful. And I don't know all the infrastructure plans. I don't know exactly what their plans are, but I don't want any part of it. And I don't even work in the city. Imagine people that work in the city that have to deal with that. And it's not just during the Olympics. It's leading up to it. It's for years leading up to it. Like the Big Dig was a nightmare. And
it was awful. I was there for the entire Big Dig.
I worked in Boston. That was the worst. The worst. And this will be similar, man. It's gonna be tough to have an Olympics.
Yeah, but the good news is you'll come out of it with a stadium for the Revolution.
That's right. I went to one of their games this year. I'm not gonna lie. I went down there for their final championship game. There was a freaking lot of people there, and I thought, man, if they had this thing in Boston, like Somerville, or somewhere closer to town, they'd sell out, man. They'd definitely sell out. The stadium's huge. It looked ridiculous. I was like, this is a 70,000 seat stadium, and there's 30,000 people. It looks empty, and there's a poop load of people for a soccer game.
Well, that's what all the MLS teams are realizing, that they should have stadiums between 25,000 and 30,000. Then you cram them. You have a supply and demand thing, and it's a better atmosphere. It feels packed. That's what you want. You don't want a 70,000 seat stadium.
Everything about it would be better, and I think that if you have it close to a T stop, like if you had it in Somerville, or if you had it in if you put it somewhere, in Southie or someplace like that, it would make it more accessible for people to get to. I don't know. I think it would be kind of cool to go to some soccer games. You're in and out, like, it doesn't take long. It's kind of like going back to your basketball thing itself. I'm 42 years old, dude. I'm recovering 2 days later after going to a tailgate for, 12 hours. It's 2 days later, you're recovering. You go to a Celtics game, literally, it's a noon game. On the weekend, those Sunday games, they sometimes have early, or a 1 o'clock game. You leave your house at 12, you're there, you're home by 4:15 eating dinner, 4:30. And that's like train to stadium, to the fleet, to the garden, and then back. I don't know. That might be where I'm going in the future. That might be the new ticket for me.
I still call it the fleet too.
I know.
I can't help it. It's just I can't call it the garden. It's not the garden. They tore down the garden.
I don't even call Gillette. I call it Foxborough.
You know that there's
going there forever, and I call it Foxborough Stadium.
There's one scenario where your buddy Bill Simmons moves back to Boston. Do you know what it is?
Global warming?
No. Well, global warming is a good one. I didn't think of that. Yeah, so maybe there's two scenarios.
You realize that everyone out in California is soft, and you're like, I want my kids to grow up around
don't take shots
real
at California. People? Come on. Well, that's not a bad reason. So the number one high school player right now in basketball, his name is Ben Simmons.
Really?
My son's name is Ben Simmons.
I know that.
He is going to be the number one pick of the 2016 NBA draft, a draft that the Celtics will have their own pick and Brooklyn's pick, and probably about 19 other picks. If the Celtics draft Ben Simmons,
you'll move back.
I have to move back.
Come on.
I feel like that's a sign from God. What are the odds that I name my son Ben Simmons? I just randomly name him Ben Simmons, and then he's born in 2007, a week after the Red Sox won the World Series, by the way. Actually, like 5 days after the Red Sox won the World Series. And after he was born, the Celtics won the NBA title. Just throwing that out there.
What do you think? How do you think Carrie would feel about that? Does she like California?
If the Celtics had Ben Simmons, how do I not move back? That's like a sign from God.
Listeners of the podcast, you've got it here. I will take bets on that. If the Celtics get Ben Simmons, that Bill will not move back to Boston.
Forget about.
Can I tell your fans what I call you sometimes? Can I tell them I call you Malibu Billy sometimes?
That was just because I had that jacket on that one time.
For anyone, I hadn't seen Bill in it's been a year. I don't know how long it's been. It'll be a little while.
This is like in the mid-2000s. This isn't fair.
And he came back, and he was wearing like this, I don't know, velvet or
no, it wasn't velvet. It was just it was a mustard colored jacket. That was a really nice jacket.
It was I looked at it, I said, Malibu Billy, good to have you back.
I had no response. I had no response at all. Look, I've been waiting my whole life for the Celtics to have a player named Simmons, but to have somebody named Ben Simmons, that's just too weird.
50% of the battle there. He's an Aussie, but
he's the next Kevin Garnett apparently. He's
really?
going to LSU, which he's from Australia and going to LSU, which doesn't seem shady at all. And he's going to play a year, and he's going to go into the NBA draft, and the Celtics have a good chance at the number one pick. So we'll see. We'll see.
That would be great.
I know I'm going to move back at some point.
Maybe when the kids go to school. Maybe they'll come to school back here.
Oh, that'd be nice.
I've got my sister that lives out there.
I'd like to see my son get into a college.
Well, he'll get it. He'll get it.
My son barely wears clothes.
Well,
it's like a wild animal. We almost have to keep him in a cage.
That just means he'll get in and then join a frat. That doesn't make sense.
Well, you have a son. They're like wild animals. They're not even
human
like
beings. Wild animals.
They're animals.
There's something different about boys and girls at that age. They're just not. Very strange, man. Very strange. Like, you're taking a dump, and they'll just open the door and walk right into you and be like, hey, Dad. I'm like, can you smell that? Like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, yeah. Hey, anyway, and they'll just have a full-on conversation with you, and they don't even get it. Or if you're
they don't get it.
If you're in the kitchen and you're like, hey, can you hand me that glass right there on the table? And they'll look around everywhere but at the table. They'll look at the ceiling. They'll look at the floor. He's like looking at the wall. He's like, what glass, Daddy? I'm like, the one there on the table. And he won't look at the table. But maybe mine's just special. I don't know.
No, every parent who has a little boy up until they hit about 7 is convinced there's something wrong with them.
And he's got all his little buddies. He's got a lot of little buddies. They're all
then you
happy.
go to a birthday party, you're like, oh, they're all like this. Oh,
They're
great. I didn't realize
it.
they were all idiots.
I had a crap load of them over the vacation. I had a bunch of them in my backyard. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go old school. Going to have it. Just come over the house. Don't call. Just be there. And I'll be out back. And it was like 25 degrees that day. And one guy was like, hey, I'll be back at this is at 10. Like anytime after 10. Like, hey, I'll be back at 1. I'm like, 1? You going to bring your hockey stick? You're going to come to stay at 1? Like, I'm having them all day, man. I had kids in my backyard from 10 in the morning till the last one left at 5:30. Literally did not go in the house. Outside, playing hockey, playing football, playing soccer.
How many injuries?
None.
Wow, that's incredible.
Couple cried. Couple got cold. Couple got a little cold. And then there were a couple that were on the grass, like playing soccer or football. They got knocked over, and they did the whole lie on the grass thing. I went on over, and I'm like, hey, are you injured, son? No. I'm like, then you need to get off the grass or start playing again. And
See,
meanwhile,
this is why dads matter. This is everyone always thanks mom, and they talk about moms, and it's moms. But dads have certain roles in life, and that's one of them. Get up.
That's one of them right there.
Yeah,
and it's like,
get up. You're not hurt. Get up.
And the kids these days, people have these conversations like, what's going on with kids these days? They're horrible. Bullshit. Kids these days are way nicer than we were. Way nice. They're like, one of the kids goes up and is like, are you okay? I'm like, he's all right. Keep playing. Don't stop. And the kid looked at me like, oh, my God, this guy's mean. You know, he's legitimately concerned for his friend. And I'm like, he's all right. He just wants to take a little break. That's all there is to it.
I remember some of the stuff we did when I was growing up in Massachusetts. Like, tie the long thing of string across the road to scare the cars. The cars were driving to the string and jam. Like, it's like, oh, we easily could have beheaded somebody on a motorcycle, but never thought about it.
I can't even tell you about this thing because my son someday, if these were in archive,
you hope he doesn't.
He'll someday listen to this, and I could tell you probably much worse things that I did as a kid than you probably.
Did I ever tell you I lived near Brookline Country Club at one point on Hammond Street? And
I heard. You know what? Did you live in the bad part by the country club, or?
No, there was a hole that was right on Hammond Street, and the green was on Hammond Street. And me and my friend Reese used to sneak under the fence, and people would hit their approach shots onto the green, and we would run onto the course, grab the balls, and run off. And then they would go, and they would just be looking at each other in disbelief, not knowing where the ball was, and we would just do that for hours.
I would kill you.
Do kids even do stuff like that now?
They don't. They don't. At least I don't know. The guys that my son hangs out with, they're good. All of them, to a kid, all of them are really good kids. I don't think kids do that anymore. I really don't.
People are well mannered. They're nicer now.
People don't.
You know what? They're just mean to each other on the internet. That's why we have the internet now. That's where they get all their meanness out.
That's it. In school, they're not. They're like legitimately nice to each other. They play well. They come over and involve my daughter, and I'm just like, oh man, 10 years are gonna be, hey Millie, how you doing? I don't know. They're just different kids. Their kids are different. I just think they're nicer. They really are.
I agree with you. Yeah, I'm happy to have two nice kids. We have to go.
All right, hey man, are you gonna make it out to a game at all? A Pats game ever again? You think?
I will be going to Super Bowl 49 if the Patriots make it.
Well, I'm talking. We're going to see you ever at another tailgate. I promise the big guy doesn't come.
Oh, that's happening next year. I want to do a regular season, though. I can't tailgate when we have this much at stake and have a good time.
All right.
But if this is it for the Brady Belichick era, I just want to say it's been a great ride.
It's been an unbelievable ride. Unbelievable. I disagree with you, though. I don't think it's over at all.
I don't think it's over either. But it's a 3% chance that this could be the last Brady Belichick home game. or 2% or 1%. Who the hell knows? You never know. Belichick's been coaching forever. Brady's been playing forever. You just never know. I remember being in Miami when LeBron played the last game of the finals in Miami, which is Game 4 in June, and all the fans left early, and we came on after that game, and I said on TV, I really hope those fans realize that there's a very small chance that was LeBron's last game here, and he might be leaving, and they're going to feel bad that they left with 8 minutes to go instead of cheering him when he left.
No way with Brady.
My point is, you never know in sports.
You never know. I guess you never know.
My point is, we should savor all of these Brady Belichick playoff home games because we've had a bunch of them, and they've been freaking awesome, and I love the fact that we have another one coming.
I will savor it, but I will say this. I think if they do that to Brady, that will suck because I think we have a very young and very good defense.
I agree.
It's going to be better and better over the next 3 years. I think we have another. I don't want to say anything. I'm not going to jinx
Don't say anything.
All right.
Take it back. Suck it back.
Bye.
Bye.
Take it back. Bye.
All right. See you, buddy. That's it for the BS report. Check out Grantland.com. 2 columns up today. One about Joe Flacco. One a picks mailbag column. And enjoy football this weekend. Go Pats. Talk to you later.
So I get to sign off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.